Now, if you're watching this video, you're probably already aware of how powerful Facebook's targeting capabilities are. This is the main draw of Facebook as a marketing platform. They have insane amounts of data from what they collect from people on Facebook itself, from partner websites that include a Pixel, who display Facebook ads, and also through partnerships with big data companies. The result of this is a ridiculous amount of data and a capability to hyper target people based on loads of different criteria. So just to give you an example, if you hadn't noticed already, within the detailed targeting section when you're setting up a new Facebook ad set, whereas just a year or so ago there was only one box here and we'd be able to target people based on interest, which was powerful enough already, we've now got the capability to narrow audience down and exclude audiences and go ridiculously tight on exactly who it is we want to target. So this is where spending that prep time before you start creating ads will save you so much more time and so much money and enable you to reach exactly the right customer at the right time. So a lot of clients I've been working with recently, the first thing they say off the boot is that they just need to reach thousands of people. They just need to spread the word. They need millions of people to understand their brand. This is a massive mistake, a huge mistake. There's so much more power in reaching a small amount of people that are really passionate about your brand. It's more cost effective. It's going to be more relevant to them. You're going to get better customers. Why spend your money trying to access thousands, millions of people in the hope that a few of them will be relevant and buy, when you can narrow down to exactly who you need after researching exactly who that is? So just looking at the detailed targeting section here now, for example, in the first box, we're looking for people who like jewelry. So we've got 383,118,310 people. That's quite a few. And probably a vast majority of those people aren't going to be relevant to what we're advertising. So we've got a premium product. So we're going to go for people that earn at least 50k a year. So in the second box, we've used this narrow further option. And we selected under demographics financial that people must also earn at least £50,000 a year. And we've gone even further down on this because we're advertising an anniversary product, because we're advertising something which is going to be relevant to couples' anniversaries. So we've gone to behaviours anniversary and selected must also have an anniversary in the next 61 to 90 days. And just for the fun of it, because to be quite frank, I couldn't think of any realistic thing to exclude in this situation, we've also excluded people who like Pims. So by using this process of exclusion, we've managed to find 8,900 people who fit our exact criteria. Now this is a broad example, this is just to demonstrate the capabilities. But once you've figured out exactly who your customer is, what activates them to buy, what qualifies them as a good customer, this is how insanely targeted you can get. Now fortunately, this really doesn't have to be a guessing game. Once you've got your customer profile together, we've got this really handy infographic the guys over at WordStream have created. And this goes through every single one of Facebook's targeting options at this moment in time. Now these things are likely to change over time, so by the time you're watching this video there may be more, but this is going to give you a really good idea of what's available for you to target at, and B, start to give you some ideas about what you should be identifying within your target customers, what qualifying demographics and interests you can start to use to target and find those customers. So we got location, age, gender, all the basic demographic stuff. This is really obvious. Relationship status, education, so all the obvious things. Then we get into financial. There's a lot more financial data in the US available than in the UK, just because, to be frank, US data laws seem to be a lot more lax. But you can still hit stuff like net worth and income in the UK, which is great. Industry, so this is going to be really useful if you're doing B2B sales. Living situations, more demographic, whether millennials, who are a really responsive audience for a lot of businesses right now. Parents, so this is again going to be really relevant to a lot of our viewers doing consumer goods for parents and children. Life events like we've just seen, anniversaries, relationships, engaged, weddings, really relevant to jewelers and that sort of business. And then interest, this is where this infographic just starts to become the tip of the iceberg, because there are so many interests and there's so many pages for other businesses which become interests that this really is just more of a loose guide. Fitness and wellness, really responsive audience, ridiculous amounts of money to be made in this space, more ways to target people's hobbies, interests, etc. And you know, when you really start thinking about these interests and crossover interests with other affinity groups, then these become a hell of a lot more powerful. So you don't necessarily need to take any of these at face value. You're very likely, especially if you do your audience research right, to start finding crossover interests between interests. So if you find somebody that's interested in physical exercise, they may well also be interested in meditation, for example. Again, a very top level example, but when you start to understand that these affinity interests exist, then you suddenly shift into being a Facebook marketing ninja. So take a look at this infographic. I'm going to include it with this video. There's a load of really interesting stuff and a few tips and tricks in here that you can start to employ straight away in your targeting options. At the same time, try not to get overwhelmed. There's a lot of options here, and that's really useful for being able to hyper target, but it certainly doesn't mean that you need to pick a category from every single one of these things and target based on that. You should be picking things which are relevant to your audience, things that really matter to them and that are actually going to be effective. Employ the 80-20 rule. 20% of the things you do are going to give you 80% of the results. So strip back and strip back and strip back, find out what's working and employ that, get rid of the rest.